Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars, welcome to another classic film review. Today's classic film review is for the 1994 John Carpenter horror film In the Mouth of Madness. Obviously directed by John Carpenter and stars Sam Neill, Jürgen Prochnow, Julie Carmen, David Warner, John Glover and Charlton Heston. Now this is... some of you may or may not know, this is the third film in what John Carpenter calls his Apocalypse trilogy that started with Thing, then it was The Prince of Darkness, I believe, and then In the Mouth of Madness. And in this film, the film focuses on Sam Neill's character, John Trent, who is an insurance investigator. His job is to sniff out frauds that are trying to be fraudulent against insurance claims, things like that. And he is brought on board to hunt down the famed horror author, Sutter Kane, who has gone missing, and they are awaiting his next book, his eagerly anticipated book. Sam Neill immediately smells a rat. He thinks it's all a publicity stunt, but he goes looking for Sutter Kane with Julie Carmen's character Linda Stiles, who is an editor at the publishers who have sent him to try and find Sutter Kane. They end up at a place called Hobbs End, which, funnily enough, is a place that is written about in Sutter Kane's books. He gets there with Linda Stiles, and everything seems set up to the point where everything you see and everywhere you look is directly ripped from Sutter Kane's books. Still, John Trent isn't buying it. He still thinks it's a publicity stunt, but things begin to escalate and get exceedingly more freaky as the film goes on. Right, what are my thoughts on In the Mouth of Madness? Well, this, like many of John Carpenter's films, when it initially came out, was kind of frowned upon by critics and audience members, really. I remember when this came out, I don't think I went to the cinema to see this one. I saw it later on DVD or VHS, I'm not sure which. And even though at the time I was a big fan of, the John Carpenter films, like obviously Halloween, Big Trouble in Little China, The Thing, that sort of thing, I probably wasn't as respectful towards his work as I am now, a little bit more older and maturer. And I remember watching this for the first time and being a little bit underwhelmed and a little bit disappointed with it. But like many of John Carpenter's films, it's aged like a fine wine. And it is now amongst my favourite John Carpenter films. It's a brilliant piece of work by John Carpenter that kind of just bubbles along at a beautiful pace with some really creepy imagery going on amongst the film. And I think the casting of Sam Neill here is a work of genius. He is just so great in this film. And I do remember the first time I ever saw this back in the 90s, it would have been probably not being overly impressed with the Sam Neill character and things. And now I can appreciate it for what it is, his performance, this very confident man, this insurance, investigator. And you slowly see him fracture as the film goes on. He's, completely crumble as the film progresses on to who he becomes at the end of the film. Hence the title In the Mouth of Madness, I suppose. And it's just such a clever film. Really clever, with some really unnerving, uncomfortable moments in it that just scratches under the surface of your fears, and it never fully commits here and there, but you know what's going on. Things just aren't right in this place, Hobbs End, and all that kind of stuff, and it slowly builds this weird imagery going on, really weird and freaky stuff happening, and then it just continues to get worse and worse and worse and worse until the full reveal kind of by the end. And it all just kind of fits into place like a nice little final piece of a jigsaw puzzle. I mean, honestly, you just have to tip your hat to John Carpenter. I was having a discussion with my wife just the other day about John Carpenter. I can't remember why we were talking about him. And I was explaining why I think he's, one of the 5 best directors who've ever worked. Because it's been so influential. So many of his films and how initially, they just kind of, a lot of his films have kind of just like hovered just underneath like critics and audience members, and they're just kind of like, oh, okay. And then as they just gain momentum as the years go on, so many of his films, and almost like the ones that are received better when they first released, like Starman, you know what I mean? A real commercial film in regards to John Carpenter. Those haven't aged as well as some of the other films in his filmography. And this one, I just think it's brilliant, and I really, really like the fact that it's now getting the respect that it deserves. And the film obviously hints that this Sutter Kane character is very much portrayed in the film as almost like a Stephen King character, and even Stephen King is directly referenced a couple of times in the film actually. But it's more a cross between Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft. And certainly much of the design of the creatures in this are very much Lovecraftian, to say the least. Some interesting casting choices. While researching this, I noticed apparently Rutger Hauer was considered for the Sutter Kane character, which I thought was really interesting. I thought he would have been a good choice as well. Tom Berenger, Jane Woods, Michael Keaton, and Ray Liotta were all considered for the role of John Trent, the Sam Neill character. But again, I think while some of those would have been interesting choices and probably would have done a good job, I can't imagine anybody doing this now. But Sam Neill, who, honestly, I can't compliment his performance enough. It's just outstanding. So for me, this is a very, very strong John Carpenter film. Easily one of my favourites. And I do believe I did a top 10 list of my favourite John Carpenter films some time ago. A couple of years ago, probably on the channel now. And this definitely made the list. If you want to know how high up on the list, I will leave a link at the end of the video in the end screen, and if you want to click on that you can check it out. But I'm going to give this one a very, very strong 8.5 out of 10. A really, really good film, a nicely paced film with some really creepy stuff going on in it, and one that definitely you should check out if you've never seen In the Mouth of Madness. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. Of course, I will be back with plenty more content and reviews on the channel very, very soon.